When people think of our court, they think of Abraham Lincoln, Clarence Darrow, and Al Capone, and maybe Operation Greylord. But this court is more than big names and big cases. Every day, we in the court system help people become citizens of this great nation. Every day, we resolve disputes between parties using the highest legal standards that apply to everyone in our land. And every day, we're helping people, at least we hope we are, overcome injustice.
What our court does is give access to people that have suffered some type of injustice and have an opportunity to get their day in court.
People bring their disputes to us, and we get those cases resolved. And people live by the resolutions of those disputes. That's what's remarkable about the court. And one of the best processes that anybody's come up with in the world, and it works.
This court has roots that go back 2 centuries. The federal court was established here in the year after Illinois became a state. And as Northern Illinois grew from frontier towns to the hub of American commerce to the complex and diverse place we know today, our responsibility has always remained to communicate in the best way we can what fairness and a just resolution of disputes is all about.
Whether it's relations between people, disputes, whether it's problems with the government, individuals in the government, or businesses and the government. The law resolves all those problems, or at least tells us where to go so we can resolve those problems in a way that's very unique to the United States and a few other Western countries.
It levels the playing field. It means that it doesn't matter if you're male or female, what your race is, what your religion is, you're supposed to be treated the same.
It's our role to make decisions based upon the principles that apply universally to everybody. It has to do with the Constitution, the principles of law, the merits of the case before us. And sometimes when waters are uncharted, when there isn't a clear resolution from the law, to do what we think is the most fair thing without regard to what would be popular. There are everyday people concerned about what their futures hold, concerned about the lives for their children, and concerned about whether or not their employment situation is going to continue, and whether or not their homes or their neighborhoods will be stable.
We have the heightened reality of racism. We have the heightened reality of discrimination.
We're talking about issues of discrimination, of sexual harassment, of bullying, of unequal opportunity, lack of promotion, unequal pay.
We live in a complex world. Regulatory issues are complicated. Rules and regulations of state and local government are complicated.
And the level of corruption that's been in high public office, including the governor's office, has been stunning.
Do we do enough for the people who don't have? Do we step up to the plate and really make sure that this is a system of justice?
The laws do nothing unless you have an independent judiciary that the public has confidence in, that they trust and believe that disputes will get resolved fairly.
We, as a court, address and do justice for people from all walks of life, every imaginable background. If those individuals come into our courthouse and see nobody that looks anything like themselves, or nobody that has any background that's similar to himself or herself, there's a basis for suspicion that they won't achieve fairness. And like much of the country, we've made progress, but we're not there yet. We are an imperfect reflection of the communities that we serve. At times, we've been both frustrating and groundbreaking.
I used to walk into a courtroom and they would say, honey, you're supposed to bring your lawyer, all right? No secretaries appear in this courtroom. And I would say, Judge, I'm a lawyer.
When I interviewed at law firms, some of them would, just blatantly say, we don't hire women.
There certainly was a period in time when I would not have been able to be a magistrate judge because I was a lesbian. I have no doubt about that.
One day, when I arrived early to start the workday when I was a law clerk, got into the elevator, and before the elevator doors closed, though, another gentleman walked in. He was a federal judge. He looked over at me, and he said to me, congratulations on becoming a citizen. And what had happened, it occurred to me, was that he assumed I was there for the naturalization ceremony.
Litigants, when they come into a court, have a good feeling when they see that the court is diverse. There's a sense that there's someone who understands you and understands your situation.
I don't think it's possible to overstate the value of someone like James Parsons to this district and the practice of law here. Not only for what he represents as the first African-American judge with a lifetime appointment to the district court bench, but because of his dedication to the law and principles of fairness and justice.
He had a great dignity about himself. And he was, to me, the image of what a good judge would be. He was measured in how he spoke. He was thoughtful and wise in his decisions. And so he was someone that I really looked up to.
The federal bench now looks a whole lot more like the American population than it did when I started practicing in the federal courts, when with rare exceptions, it was a white man's club. Not that some of those weren't very good judges. They were good judges.
The selection of qualified women has changed the practice of law entirely. They bring a different perspective to the law. Ethnic groups bring a different perspective. And an amalgamation of all of these groups make it a better court.
We have to recognize that perceptions are being shaped in a very different way than when there were just, so many TV stations and so many newspapers in town.
Media attention, and I think public attention, has often suggested that there are political implications to what goes on in the court system. That communicates to the public, in perhaps a misleading way, that judges are really political figures who carry out political aims or political agendas.
We have to be independent. And that's why the founders designed the system the way they did, so that we can decide cases without fear or favor and enforce this cherished principle that we have, which is that we're a nation ruled by law.
We are required to be judicious, independent, and helpful, and to provide the forum that's necessary in some instances, and I think it is necessary even today in some of the problems that we face in our country, that there is a court, a place where someone can come and say, this is right, this is wrong, and debate it fairly and with good assistance and counsel.
Democracy is fragile. It's very, very messy. And the reason that's wonderful and troubling is because if it weren't messy and fragile and changeable, that would mean that we had a law that was not living, that was not moving with the world and the needs of our people.
There isn't a day that I have that's just like the day before. There isn't a day I don't learn something new. There isn't a day that there's not some new problem presented, some new way of looking at an issue.
We ought to count ourselves as blessed that we live in a nation that is governed by the rule of law and not by the whims of popular passion, not by who's the most wealthy, not by who's the most politically connected, but the rule of law.
There has been so much change, so much growth, so much conflict, and so much progress over the last 200 years. But there's one thing that remains constant, The courts stand there to be kind of a calm, distinct voice of fairness, of reasonableness, of justice.
I always tell the citizens at naturalization ceremonies that the very courthouse in which the ceremony is taking place was designed by Mies van der Rohe, who was a naturalized citizen, and he adopted Chicago as his new hometown after he emigrated from Europe.
It's a reminder of how lucky we are to be United States citizens and how people come in order to have and to gain what it is that we have.
There are privileges, but for every privilege, there is a corresponding responsibility. They have a right to speak their mind. They ought to listen to others when they speak their mind. They have a right to practice their religion. They must respect the rights of others to practice theirs as well.
It reminds us of the allegiance and fidelity that we ourselves owe to the nation. It kind of reminds us of what it is to be a citizen, that we do honor the institution, that we care about our country, that we care about our nation, that we are committed to it, that we will fight for it, that we want this nation to succeed.